I'm here today with Matt Gallagher, a state champion from Herndon High School in Virginia, who won the 145-pound weight class in 1998. He won his match in the state finals with a pin in 37 seconds, and you should watch the YouTube version of the interview if you want to see his reaction to watching that match for the first time in more than 20 years. Matt was a 4-time state placer, 4-time regional champion, a 3-time district champion, and he talks about his entire wrestling career in this podcast. It is an awesome episode and very enlightening about how to become a great wrestler. As always, please leave a review on iTunes if you like the podcast. Now let's get rolling.
He taught me to get up when I didn't want to get up, when I wanted to quit.
I had high goals, man. I've always had high goals.
And so when I won it, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, you guys are right.
It's not the thrill of winning. It's the joy of having that personal goal and being able to achieve that and walk off the mat with your head held high and with your hand up.
That just fueled my fire, and I was in every state championship match from there on until I graduated.
That was when I really started doing the kind of wrestling that I was capable of.
Anybody that steps in the ring and just decides to commit the entire time is a state champion in my book.
Welcome back to another episode of Back Points, the podcast where top wrestlers and coaches reveal their secrets about how they won state titles in high school wrestling. Very excited to be here with Matt Gallagher today. He won the 1999 state tournament at 145 pounds, and I was there, watched it in person. I was a young wrestler, and it was by far the most exciting match of the night, although it was very short. Matt, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. My pleasure, Will.
So I watched you wrestle. I was, I think, a sophomore maybe at the time. I was a pretty new wrestler. And I have to say, you were the most exciting wrestler that I had ever seen in high school up to that point. You were a very talked about wrestler.
I mean, I hope well, I'm sure there were some rumors. I don't know if I heard the same rumors that you heard of, but
so I heard that you were a professional skater. Was that true?
Yeah, I did. I rollerbladed. That was like my I would wrestle, and then if I wasn't wrestling, I would be skating. Okay. And that ended up leading to a sponsorship when I was like 15 or 16. And I mean, there was when I was like 16 and 17, every summer I rode for Hyper wheels. I don't know if you remember Hyper, if you ever rollerbladed, but they were fairly big for a little while. And then I got a sponsorship by a small company called Realm. But once I got sponsored and I had my own wheel, the trucker, I would get an envelope with tickets, 10 to 12 plane tickets. And it would be like, go to Portland, go to San Francisco, go down to San Diego, then go to Vegas, then go here. And I'd just fly around, I'd show up at the hotel. There'd be like per diem money. I mean, I'm like 16, 17 years old, out for, 6-7 weeks on my own. And so it was like the best time of my life. I had a lot of fun doing the skating and stuff, but that is ultimately, where I hurt my knee my junior year. I don't know if you remember. I didn't wrestle.
I do remember
the entire season. I went into districts 0-0, which I always feel bad about. Shout outs to Dan Keckman. It was kind of a dick move, but they were just like, look, you have to wrestle. I didn't want to wrestle my junior year. I was like he's been wrestling all year. One, second, they did an initial surgery and the repair failed. So they went back in and just cut out, it was a meniscus tear. It wasn't ACL or anything. But they kind of forced my hand, and we did end up taking third as a team that year in states. Wow. So, at the end of the day, Spin Weber and Sabo and everyone who were like, you have to wrestle, they were right. Even though I got, I got wiped all over the mat by a couple people, that year. I still ended up taking fourth.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, they were right. We might not have, probably wouldn't have picked up third had they not basically made me do it. But, you know, that's our highest state place winning, I think, as a team. So, they sacrificed a lot. I was just talking to Andrew Abrams. I don't know if you remember him.
I do.
He was part of the three-headed monster, me, Pete, back, and Andrew. And he's doing really well down in New Orleans. But, you look back at all the time and energy that coaches, parents, what a big part of everyone's lives it was. It's something that you kind of lose track of, but it was a huge part of my youth and growing up.
Well, that was one of the other rumors about you, was that you didn't want to wrestle. You would go out there and you'd beat everybody, but you really didn't want to be there. And so was that your junior year that you really didn't want to be there because of the injury?
I was always cutting a lot of weight, which was a huge part of it. Or at least, from freshman year, like really kind of killed me. I mean, I was naturally weighing like 118 to $120 and change. I'm cutting down to 103. And there was times when I would, it's not that I was bulimic because I wanted to look emaciated, but I would eat because you take a little bite of something, a little sip of something in the fridge, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh shit, that was way too much food. And it was just the cutting weight got to me. That was tough. My freshman year, I should have won my freshman year. It was basically me, Winston Escalante from Tallwood, and Matt Viola from Western Branch. And I had already beat Escalante and shit. And I make weight at States, and I go out for breakfast. We all go out for breakfast, and I got waffles with like strawberries and whipped cream. And our trainer, what was her name? Anyways, our trainer, Claire. She also got waffles with strawberries and whipped cream, and she didn't finish hers, and so I ate hers too. And then there was this one guy, he was like a curse to me and Pete back. He did it to him his senior year too. But my first match, I go out and I wrestle this guy. I wish I could remember his name right now. But I ended up throwing up on him, the coach. And then, I came back and took third. Next year, got to the finals, wrestled Joey Legg. Shout outs to Joey Legg. I also wrestled with him at UVA. He's a good dude. Lost in the finals there. And then my junior year, I was kind of, it was like I really could have cared less if I wrestled. I got hurt skating. I, kind of enjoyed the time off, not having to cut weight, work out immediately after. I mean, it was, I've been wrestling since I was like 5-6 years old. So that was probably where it started, was around sophomore year, where I wasn't sure if I wanted to, continue competing at that level. But, that goes on and on. We can get to that, at UVA and Tech. I wrestled there for a little bit at both places.
It sounds like the weight cutting was a huge part of
It definitely was. It was horrible. I mean, I was doing everything that they tell you not to do, wearing plastics. I mean, it was miserable, especially my freshman year in high school. I mean, I wasn't healthy, I was, but it was, that was kind of like enough. And then the next year I jumped from 103, and I started out, I was like, I'm not cutting weight. And so that natural weight was like 135. And I was still competitive at 135, but I ran into a few people who showed me what someone who's naturally 150, 155 pounds is like at 135. Not Rankin. It was another guy, Jimmy something from Stonewall, and it was at the Classic, the tournament Hernan used to hold, and I think he tech falled me, or he damn near tech falled me. So I went down to 130, and 130 was a a sweet spot for that year where I could compete. I had a chance at winning states, but Joey was a good wrestler. But yeah, I mean, that was a huge thing, was cutting weight, and then getting, it wasn't so bad. It was, through senior year, 145 was, I wasn't cutting much weight. But then, you get to college, you start, really start, the weightlifting and stuff, and then you're not, you naturally bump up to $180, $185, and you got to make 157. So then it becomes, now you're blowing up 25, 30 pounds again, which, it was almost killed me at 103 pounds. But even at 157, cutting 30 pounds down from 185, it just got old. You're going to school, you're trying to have fun. I really wish I had stuck with it. I don't know how the interview with Paul went, but I'll never forget him saying, I kept with the wrestling because I always would have wondered, what I could have done had I not done it. And, I commend him and Tim Foley and everyone else who stuck with it and did the best they could,
Well,
but, yeah, it just, it was part weight cutting, part, wanting to party and just being kind of tired of it. Just a little burnout, I'm sure that it's not the first time you've heard someone talk about getting burnout on wrestling.
Sure, and I think that unfortunately cutting weight is a big issue, and it's one of those things where in the very short term it can help, and it can be there's a lot of instant gratification in a perverse way to cutting weight and having a minor advantage maybe in certain matches, and then long term though it really can hurt the longevity of an athlete. It's really, I mean, I know.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a lot. It's, you may be cutting weight just because the weight class is weaker. You can't really compete at whatever, weight class up. It's stacked, and you got nowhere to go. But if you can only drop that extra 8 to 10, there's only really this guy and this guy, with the extra weight advantage and being a little bigger. Now you've got a shot.
Yeah.
But so that's hard to get away from because everybody wants to win and be competitive.
Well, they do a good job now of getting away from it. I mean, it is a different sport in a lot of ways than what you and I remember in the 90s. It is the weight cutting rules around the year 2000 got much stricter, and they really over time have started to be able to enforce them really well. And I think that in many ways that's going to be probably a really positive thing, so you don't have quite as much burnout. Because I know you're not alone on that. And you mentioned the interview with Paul Bjorlo. He had a great career. He ended up winning the conference. I think he didn't seem to suffer from the same weight cutting.
No, and he was always better with his. I mean, Paul would suck down, but he was always more healthy about it. He would do it the right way and not be cutting weight up until the last minute, trying to drop the last. Paul was always just very good about that. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't knocking him at all. I wish that I would have because when I left UVA, I mean, not only just leaving, kind of stopping wrestling, and I did get back in the room briefly at Tech with Terry Brands when he was coaching there for a little while. But I wish I would have not only stuck with wrestling, but I also wish I would have stayed at UVA and got a degree from there as opposed to Tech. No, I don't mean to talk shit about Tech, but I wish I would have stuck with UVA, both the wrestling and the degree there.
I see. So I'm curious though, with wrestling, you made the comment that you wish you'd stuck with it. What, you accomplished a lot as a wrestler. What do you wish you had accomplished, or do you just wish that you?
I think I could have, just to be a all of it, just to go to the big show and place in the top 8.
Yeah.
That's something that I feel like I wish I would have made happen, and I know I could have.
Yeah. Well, let's go back in time for a minute here. So you should have won the state tournament, you said, your freshman year. You won it as a senior and in very dominant fashion. How is it that you arrived as a freshman so well prepared to you were second as a freshman or third?
I actually hit the cycle. So I took third after that loss, the first round, came back and won 8 matches or something, I think, to take third my freshman year. Sophomore year, made it to the finals. Lost a close match to Joey Legg. I think he went to Gloucester. Tough Virginia wrestler. And junior year, came in 0-0 to districts. Ran into Rankin and, some tougher guys there, but ended up taking 4th. And then my senior year, I won. So I really think, I was a contender to win my freshman year, obviously in my sophomore year in the finals, and my senior year, I did win. But given the right circumstances, I could have been a 4-timer. It just didn't work out that way.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think was instrumental for you to start your freshman year at such a high level?
Oh yeah. I got to give credit to the Beltway Bandits,
mm-hmm.
And youth wrestling clubs. But I would say, definitely the bandit wrestling. I grew up, through it was Springfield wrestling initially when I started out with them. And I grew up competing with guys like Quinn Foster, Jeremy Ferry. I wrestled him in a dual meet when I was like 12 years old. I think I wrestled Brandon Rushing in a match here and there. So I got it really just, especially with the local talent and then traveling and meeting, wrestling up in Pennsylvania, the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. I that was always a huge thing to win Eastern Nationals. And I finally did win, I think it was 8th grade. So, between the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association, cycle that occurs, I think it typically happens like right after the main season, early part of the year. But it was just, sticking with it and wrestling and always having something to chase after. In high school was being state champ. Up until, freshman year, it was win the East Coast Nationals. That was kind of the biggest platform. I did some freestyle and some Greco and travel stuff like that, but collegiately it was trying to get that Eastern National Championship and just being really involved with it. We went to the state tournament every year since I was a little kid.
You went to watch?
I don't know if every state tournament, just showing up and watching it. My dad, they've got the little mat in the back where, one dad takes his kid and they're like, oh, he just won. Well, okay, let's have him wrestle a little bit. And you don't really know it, but they're just trying to show out and see who's got the best kid. But all of that, just the competitiveness. We were really like a family, Bandits wrestling, the Garinas, the Orlos, the Carpenters, Gallagher's, the Renzis, so it was just being with a solid group of, having that foundation where we had success as a team. We were always competitive in the, I don't even know what the championships were called at that time. The private wrestling or But that was definitely, that, and my dad. My dad was a alternate on, I want to say, the '76 Olympic team. He wrestled with guys like Mike Douglas, or no, Bobby Douglas, Wayne Wells, Dan Gable. He had an exhibition match with him. So, first, my dad was always there, but him getting me with a group of people like, the Springfield Club and what was the future Beltway Bandits, I would say. Without that, I wouldn't have ever I had a lot of natural talent, but there's a lot of stuff you have to learn, along the way.
I see. I see. That's fascinating. I didn't realize that your dad was on alternate on the Olympic team.
Yeah, he wrestled all Army. He actually went to Virginia Tech as well. He didn't start wrestling until like his sophomore year in high school, and then really pursued it in college. And then after college, wrestled all Army. Wrestled for the New York Athletic Club. So that's really where the majority of it comes. He's been teaching me wrestling moves since I was in diapers. Like, you're in a ball and chain. What's this? Like a tuna full Nelson. So definitely, and his style. He was always unorthodox. So a lot of the funk all the weird, funky shit that you saw me do was shit he learned from, or he made it up or learned it from some Romanian or Japanese guy or whatever it is. I'm a big proponent of the funk. If they don't know what's coming, it's going to be a lot harder to stop. So have a lot of tricks in your bag. Have a lot of tricks in your bag and be able to do things both ways, and you're going to be a couple steps ahead of the game, in my opinion.
Well, I found I found your finals match in 1999 from the state tournament on YouTube the other day, and it lasted.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
Because our recording of it starts with like Foley like already on his back.
Oh, really? Okay, so this is
somebody messed it up.
You. Okay, well now I've got the full thing for you.
Can we watch it?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Here, let me.
And shout outs to Tim Foley. Tim Foley, I wrestled with him at UVA. Are you aware of that?
I'd heard that. Yes. About that.
And he beat me in. He worked harder. He was more hungry, and the guy is a monster on top. You know what I mean? I'm shorter. He's tall. He has like this tensile, like tall man strength. But that was his kryptonite against me, was his ability on top. All this little wrap you up tilt shit. That's, I think he beat me by like 2 points in a wrestle off for 157. We wrestled again at the Wilkes Open. I think he beat me 5-3. So Tim got his upcomings from states that year.
Did you talk about the match, the finals match ever? Did he ever want to?
No, there was really nothing he could say about that. I mean, that was what it was. But he did the talking during wrestle offs, and Tim's just a tough competitor. I mean, I think I might have been, lucky to get the quick W there. I mean, I don't know if I would have had problems. He picks top, he gets whatever it is. He was just always. I didn't know until we wrestled, because I took a year off after high school too. So when I went to UVA, he was a sophomore, and I was coming in as a freshman with a year off. He had been working hard for a year as a redshirt, and I still could. It wasn't like I didn't feel like I could beat him, but at the end of the day, his perseverance and not taking the year off, and just his work ethic, got him a couple W's. I hate to say it, but as of now, he got the last win.
Yeah, he ended up an All-American, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment.
And he did an awesome trip around the world where he wrestled in like Mongolia and Russia and Japan and Brazil. He got everyone to give him like, I think it was like 12 or 20 grand. He did a GoFundMe and he just went around and wrestled and filmed it all. And he was going to write a book and you'd get a t-shirt. I still don't have my book or my t-shirt, Tim, if you ever see this from your GoFundMe. You owe me a book and a t-shirt, Tim Foley.
I'm sure he'll end up seeing this. So hopefully you'll get a book and a t-shirt out of this.
Yeah. Well, I won't hold my breath.
Yeah. So, so for the folks at home, Tim Foley lost in the finals to Matt Gallagher here within, was it 30 seconds? I think
it was 37 seconds.
37 seconds. Okay, so we will post the link to that match in the show notes. But to his credit, Tim Foley went on to become an All-American at UVA, right? Or was
everyone go watch me just roll Tim up and pin him in 37 seconds as many times as you want. I just felt like I needed to, for full disclosure, let everybody know how things happened after that.
Yeah. No, I think that's very big of you. I should ask this really ask this question of Tim, but I after watching that match, I saw it on YouTube. I found it recently, and I did wonder, because I'd heard that he won. He became an All-American. I wondered if that final match that he had in high school, because that was the last match he wrestled in high school. I wondered if that pushed him to then.
I think it did. I think that I'm responsible solely for Tim persevering and becoming an All-American, and pretty much everything he did after that. I could take credit for it.
I'm glad.
I think so.
I like that.
I think to this day he's still motivated by that loss, because he was talking shit too. It was like, oh, Foley from Brook Point, he's gonna get Gallagher, and then he went. But it's funny how things work out. And Tim's a great guy. Everybody at UVA we had a good little. There was a lot of familiar people, especially just from the Bandits, where I grew up wrestling. I had known Paul and Steve Gallagher for, 15 years at that point. So, it's bittersweet for me to think about, because I really wish, I think that we all might have, I might have helped Paul, get that All-American spot. I wish I would have stuck with it. I miss it. And, there's nothing you can do about it now, but that's how I feel about it when I think about it. That time that other people are putting in while you don't do anything, that's really what, gets you that ground, because I've seen it happen where guys are just, for lack of a better term, they're like a bum. Like they don't know shit. They can't do shit. But they have the work ethic is there. They didn't quit. It's not that they were soft. They just didn't know enough. They weren't strong enough or whatever. And I've seen, those guys with just through work ethic, not natural ability, not this like just God-given gift, but through hard work, determination, and perseverance, they just slowly, they get up to this level where they still don't know all the tricks. They don't have the natural ability. They don't have, all the tools at their disposal that you do, but what they do well enough to fucking beat you. So it's the hard work that goes into wrestling. If your heart's not in it, it's going to be hard for you to compete with somebody whose head is really all in the game, their head and their heart. And that's what the hardest part for me is I didn't want to lose to people I knew I shouldn't be losing to. And that is a cop out, or an excuse to agree. But I mean, I feel like when I was losing to Tim and even other people I was losing to in college that I knew I could beat, at the West Virginia Open, you know, just knowing that you could be top 5 in the country or whatever, and the fact that you're not is because you're half-assing it. You know, again, in hindsight, I wish I would have, for whatever reason, decided, you know, if you know you can be, you know, just go do it, put in the work. But for me, that was kind of, you know, where my head was at when I quit was, you know, if you're not going to give it your all, you know, what's the point? You know, I don't want to go out there and just say I wrestled for the sake of wrestling and lose to guys that I know I shouldn't be losing to. And so, you know, I packed it up. But
Yeah.
it's not an easy sport. You know, you really have to be invested in it.
So, and when you're saying that, you're referring to your college years where you didn't want to just be there.
Yeah. I wish I would have stuck with, you know, I wish I would have just, because if I would have stuck with wrestling, I would have stayed at UVA. And I feel like the decision to quit wrestling is the reason I ultimately transferred from UVA to Tech. And, you know, a number of other, you know, regrets, I guess, that you could tie to that as a lifeline, you know, a life trajectory line. You know, I kind of revert back to that as a starting point for a lot of things. So yeah, there's a lot of a huge part of me that wishes I would have chose wrestling over going to hang out with my friends. You know, all decisions have consequences, or not even consequences, but you know, every action gets a reaction, and you know that was, it is what it is. You know, I'll never know what my life would have been like if I would have stayed at UVA and continued to wrestle. I can only wonder.
So why did you go to? Why did quitting wrestling leave you to leave UVA? Like, were you on scholarship?
Because that's why I went to UVA. You know, I was on scholarship.
Okay. It was a wrestling scholarship.
Yeah, just tuition only, but you know, it was something. You know,
sure. And then,
especially after a year, after taking off a year, for that to still be on the table, it was kind of like, well, you know, you have to take it at this point. But yeah, you know, it was, you know, I went from being on scholarship to taking out student loans that I'm just now paying off. So,
yeah,
you know, the decisions you make when you're 20 years old are, you know, they are what they are.
You know, your dad obviously was a huge influence. You know, he was an Olympic alternate. You say he taught you a lot of the funk that you learned.
Absolutely.
Something that's really interesting to me, though, is, you know, you've mentioned a lot of names of the top wrestlers from Virginia. You know, Paul Burelow won a championship. Steve Kelleher won 3 championships. You know, you mentioned a couple other guys who I think won.
Jeremy Ferry, he's a 4-timer. Oh, and Granby camps. I didn't mention Granby wrestling and Granby camps. You know, that was something that we all did as part of, like, the Bandits, whatever, Springfield wrestling. We all would go learn some beach wrestling. You know, Virginia Beach. It's like Virginia Beach is the epicenter, or was for a long time, of Virginia wrestling, and especially all the funky tilts and stuff, or, you know, rolls from bottom. You know, I loved the acrobatics, standing Granbys, you know, little funky, any you know, thing that where you're, you know, mechanical, just I always liked, you know, moves that had a little bit more to them, you know, in terms of the mechanics of what was going on. You know, I like things to be complicated. Weird little cutbacks, you know, just the tricky stuff. Yeah. That was always what I loved. Even growing up, Kerry Colott was my favorite wrestler. You know, I think he was a 4-time NCAA champ. Kerry Colott, he wrestled for Ken Shertow. I went to Ken Shertow's camps. So when I go to Ken Shertow's camps, I'd be like, you know, show me this thing that I saw Kerry Colott do, you know, in some match. And so I would just, you know, if I saw somebody do something funky that I hadn't seen before, I would study it and learn it. You know, this outside headlock stuff I would do. We got that from forget the guy's name, but he wrestled for Cal Poly. And we would always, go to at least watch the NCAAs. But, my dad, and yeah, I guess it was really him, he would always see these weird little things that somebody was doing or a team was doing, that were unconventional, unorthodox, different, and we would study that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, that was always part of the fun. If you could do something that somebody had never seen before and make the crowd go, "What was that?" Not only does your opponent not know what just happened to him, but people in the crowd are like, "What the coaches are like, "What did he just do?" That was that was one of the funnest parts of it for me, was the surprise element. If you can practice and get something down, especially even like, those moves that everybody, you have to have them. You're down, 10-4 or whatever. You got 20 seconds left. Like, what do you have? What kind of weird little last ditch, funky shit do you have in your bag? That was always my style of wrestling, was just not doing what everyone else did. Everyone else wants to do a head tie. I'm not going to do a head tie with you. I'm going to come in with double unders. I'm going to run, a Russian 2-on-1. I'm not going to let you wrestle your game. And if you can effectively take someone out of your game and then, assert yourself, or assert your offense, that's really the goal. So for me, that was always, I think, my strong, or my strongest suit, was having these things that other people didn't have, whether it be a means to take away your offense, or to attack you.
It's interesting. So the thing that is interesting to me also is that how different you guys were. Kelleher looked very different on the mat from you. Bjorlo looked very different. But it sounds like you all did, as a part of Bandits and West Springfield or Springfield Wrestling Club, you did these camps together, and that maybe provided a bit of a foundation that was common.
Yep.
Of technique. And then you built on that.
Yeah. And then, there was, everyone had their own style for sure. Kelleher was a very in your face. He didn't do a lot of funky stuff. He just did what he did correct, and he was like relentless with it. Paul had, it was just, everybody had their own style. And as a, every year as we grew, and every camp we went to or whatever it was, we pick up something, because we all did that together, the Mid-Atlantic wrestling stuff, the Bandits, we all did that too. We all wrestled in the off season. We did freestyle, we did Greco. People would gather different little things, just whether it's a different way, to do a front headlock, or a different way to do a shuck pie, or a different little, ankle pick, or ride, or a variance on, a spiral, or what, just all that stuff. We would all have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And people would just, kind of pick and choose what worked for them. But there was a lot of, we had a lot of different, even with the different coaches, everyone's, my dad and Mr. Garina, they wrestled together at Tech, so a lot of this goes,
mm-hmm.
Way back, but there was just a lot brought to the table for us. And, we were constantly being exposed to different things, different coaches, I think we all did, I forget what it was, but wherever we wrestled for like the Virginia freestyle or Greco team, and we go to Oklahoma, or just constantly, being pushed, gave us all the foundation to develop our own style and come up with, what worked for us. What did we do good? How are we able to score points? Yeah. How do you take a guy down? How do you get out from bottom? how do you get back points? Everyone had their different ways, you know. We all good leg game. We all definitely learned how to ride legs really tough and being able to defend against legs. Like having that as a foundation, um, sets you up to compete against a lot of tough opponents, because a guy who's tough with his legs, he might not have to take you down more than once. He might just, once he gets on top of you, he's just going to crank you and back points, turn you over and pin you. So, just we're a competitive, club. We wrestled everywhere. And we saw all different types of opponents. And, if we lost, we would, as a group, say, how do you defend against this? How do you defend against, a guy running to Michigan and sticking his arm over your head and turning you over that way? So every time, we would run into anything that was an obstacle as a group, we would, I don't know, learn how to benefit from it, or we would benefit from it by, learning ways to defend against, learning how to apply it too. If it's something that's really tough to defend, not only do you practice defending it, but you also might want to put it in your arsenal.
So Bandits really was much more than an informal kind of club. It was really, you did.
It was a lifestyle. Yeah. I mean, we lived it. I mean, our families together and stuff. I mean, it's where we spent all our time. But yeah, the level of, instruction, the workout, everything about it was very like high level wrestling, like on par with like Foxcatcher, a major, rest in peace Fox. I don't even know if Foxcatcher's still around, but the Sunkiss Kids, Foxcatcher, that was the caliber of instruction and exposure that we got with the Bandits. In my opinion, it was just like any premier private feeder program anywhere else in the country.
How many days a week did you guys train?
God, it's been so long. At least I would say formally 3, but probably more like 4 to 5.
Okay.
Especially if you're leading up to anything where people are cutting weight, even if it was normally Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, normally, if there's a tournament coming up, even if it wasn't an official Bandits workout, maybe you weren't allowed to have an official workout 4 days a week. There would be an informal thing where the serious parents would bring, you'd be in there. I mean, if it wasn't the day before a tournament, we would probably be doing something. And that was all the way up until, freshman year.
And that was, and that would be not limited just to the spring or the fall, or the winter. Was it pretty much year round except for summer when you guys would
pretty much? Yeah. We would, especially, I mean, yeah, as soon as the, collegiate season was over, Maryland, Virginia, state championships or whatever, more times than not, most of us would go right into, some type of freestyle Greco combination deal where you're wrestling both, you're doing tournaments, trying to get into, I forget the name of the big championships back then, but yeah, especially, like me, Paul, Steve, we were always, trying to, or at least our parents, were pushing us to go, do something else, continue wrestling, go to a camp, do freestyle, do Greco. And most of the time, that's what we were doing. And I really love that. I miss Greco. I think I could still compete nationally in Greco. If I get down to like a $185, they might be in trouble out there.
Do you think about entering any tournaments?
Yeah, I would like to wrestle in the I guess I would wouldn't be in the senior class yet, but like the open or the masters, 40 and over, I could still, I think I'm probably still the toughest at some weight in freestyle or Greco for 40 and over for the East Coast Nationals. I think I'm still,
All right,
still
well,
there.
I'll be in the stands if you do that.
I'd love to toss some people for you. I miss throwing people.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So you said you loved acrobatics, and one of the other rumors about you when in Northern Virginia was that you were really good at gymnastics. Like, did you do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all through like elementary school.
Okay.
Did gymnastics. I always got the Presidential Physical Fitness Award. I think I did like 25 or 30 pull-ups when I was in like second grade. I wish I could do 25 or 30 now, but I'm not quite there. But yeah, I like flipping off stuff. I could still do a backflip to this day off of whatever you want. I still will just for fun, or if you put a quarter in my cup. But yeah, I always liked jumping off stuff. We had the best playground ever in elementary school. Somebody burned it down, the bastards. But we would have the greatest games of tag where you're jumping off the top of the slide down to this mat and running over. So I was always just kind of like a little monkey, doing flips, climbing on shit. I've got really good hips. I'm kind of flat-footed, and I think you could maybe see that if I've got a bunch of old tapes that I'm going to try and start putting up on YouTube. But that was always a part of my strategy was, what, if you're going to get my leg, then I need to be able to defend that. And because, I like I said, I'm a little flat-footed, so I'd catch a lot of the time people shoot a single, they have a single. And so that's where we, developed the power quarter, and I, from the power quarter, if you're not going to go, if you're not going to turn, I can let go of your head and whip you. There's some cut throughs and rollbacks, there's shucks. So I developed, a whole, a big, system from someone being in on a single leg. And, that's just kind of, one of those things. If you're a little flat footed and guys shoot and get in on you, then figure out how to defend it. You can try and be quicker on your feet, or, you can kind of just adapt your style. But, at the end of the day, everything has its weakness. And, some guys, if you let them get a single, they're probably going to, get the two. So everything's got its, cons and pros and cons. Any style does.
Well, I was always interested in that because the Russian wrestling system doesn't have much competition at all at the younger ages. They focus on gymnastics, tumbling, and really kind of teaching.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they've got a very rigorous program, but the early ages, it's all about gymnastics. That's a huge focus for them.
Yeah, it's like I have really good hips. Even though I'm kind of flat-footed, I just have really good awareness. To where what might seem completely foreign, going this way or doing something blind to someone else feels kind of natural to me. Those things where you just have to kind of, and that's just, I don't know if you're into metaphysical type stuff, but there might be a lot of different types of intelligence, and physical intelligence is, in my opinion, one of them. And I have good physical awareness, and it probably did come from gymnastics, flipping, jumping, being able to be oriented in a disorienting state and be able to kind of hit the ground running right after all of a sudden you're not quite sure where you are. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's something that's learned or whatever, but I definitely did a lot of tumbling and swinging on bars, trying to do the sawhorse. You know, that was always a strength thing. It's a great strength thing.
Yeah.
Gymnastics is. And I've always had weak shoulders, but yeah, it definitely taught me spatial awareness, and you know, so that probably led into why I like rollerblading and skateboarding and stuff like that, because of the freedom it allows to, you know, try different things, and maybe that, you know, all kind of bled into wrestling. And you know, because you are kind of, when you skateboard and stuff, there are times when you're creating a new trick. You know what I mean? That's the ultimate goal. If you can create a new trick or do something someone else has never done before, there's a direct translation of that in wrestling, where, you know, that was always, it wasn't like I want to do what everyone else does. Like, I don't want to just do a double leg and have an awesome arm bar and, you know, run around and pin you that way. Like, it was like, you want to be able to beat someone in a different way, or, you know, just whether it be showcasing your skills, you know, because when you get to a certain level, there are times when it's like, you can't just go out and pin everyone, you know, work, tech fall them, do whatever, but go out there and work, try some new stuff, you know, have some fun with it. And then, you know, once you get comfortable with something, I mean, I still to this day, I think I got some tricks that I don't see anybody doing them. Even some of the old stuff I do, you know, used to do off the Russian. The Russian 2-on-1, I think, is the greatest tie up ever. Like, I don't know why you'd ever teach someone, yeah, head tie with the head and collar. Like, that is for the birds, man. You gotta, like, learn something different. You know, that was the fun part for me, was having my own style and being able to do stuff that made what was traditional not work. You can't just come out and tie up with me like that. It's not going to work. I'm going to take my Russian, and now you're going to, like, you know, that's just part of the beauty of wrestling, is there's always, so someone's always going to do something different, you know, so you have to constantly be adapting and learning something new. You're going to run into something you haven't seen. Someone's going to do something a little bit differently than you prepared for, and you're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and what you come up with might be a great solution for a little while. So that was part of the fun for me, was, you know, the cat and mouse game of always having something, always having a piece of cheese ready for the rat.
I love it. So you want to watch your
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's check it out here. Hang on.
Here we go.
Yeah, there you are.
Do you remember my dad? Let's just put him on here real quick.
I'm sorry.
There he is.
Who am I talking to?
This is Will Marlowe.
How you doing, Will?
Hey there. Very nice to meet you, sir.
Jack.
Yeah, he can hear you.
What are you guys doing?
So we're about to watch a match that I think you probably remember very well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're talking wrestling. Look at this. See if you remember this match here.
Is this up in
state finals senior year? That's me and Foley.
No, God, this is not gonna last long, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Going for the double unders and the throw by. He shoots.
Oh God.
Stuff him.
Good
Power
hit.
quarter.
Oh God.
Step over.
Step over.
Oh. Yeah, that's a wrap. Once we get there, it's done. The power quarter with the step over.
Yeah.
It's game time.
Oh. God, they waited that long to call it.
You're the best. Thank you for finding this, Will.
Yeah.
We only have like the last 15
Wow.
seconds or something.
I didn't
somewhere.
know.
I'm thrilled to be able to share that with you guys.
All right, man. Hey.
Yeah, that was good. That was a surprisingly clean copy. I mean, it's
good. Yeah, I'm gonna
came off VHS, but
yeah, I would love to see your regional finals match of that same year. That was a great match. That was the only match that you did not win by pin, but you had him on his back most of the time.
Was that Matt Sanders?
It was Pete Zaffros.
Pete Zaffros. That's right. He was Yorktown, right?
He was. Yeah, he was.
He was tough. You know, me and I did he beat me at one point somewhere? Like I always had these like weird things like with certain people. Tim Segru. Do you remember Tim Segru from Centerville?
I've got a story about Tim Segru. So
I bet you got a story about him. He's a wild man.
Really interesting. So he was a very good wrestler.
Yep.
But he was the first big match that I ever won.
Afros, that's right.
Yeah. So my sophomore year was his senior year, and I actually beat him for the third, fourth match for regionals. So I actually beat him his senior year for the match to go to state.
That was '99, the same year where I wrestled Pete Zaffros, right?
I guess it was. Yeah, that's right.
I think I remember watching you wrestle then because I remember seeing I think yeah, that's right. But I remember watching because Tim was always like right there, and like he was one of those guys who was like at the top, coming up like bandits and stuff. Like he was, like if anybody, we had to worry about, like Centerville wrestling was always tough, and he came out of Centerville, and so I would wrestle him all the time. I think I had beat him like up until 8th grade, probably no exaggeration, around 8 to 10 times. Like we just constantly would wrestle. And then my freshman year in districts, I met him in the finals, and he beat me.
Oh,
he like, I don't know what it was, just his time. It was just his time. And so yeah, I was a 4-time regional champ, 4-time state place winner, but only a 3-time district champ because of Tim Segru.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Well,
yep. At 103 pounds, he got me freshman year at districts, and it wasn't like I threw up on him or anything, but it was, making that 103, and same goes for him. There was just, 103 was, if you weren't sucking a lot of weight, you couldn't compete, and everybody was just sucking a lot of weight. I mean, it was we were some big 103 pounders in 1995, 96.
Yeah. So
what's your story about Tim?
Well, no, my story was just that he was the first big match that I ever won, because because I was a young wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
I started off as a freshman. Didn't do anything my freshman year. Didn't make it to states. But I did. By the end of my sophomore year, I did well enough to beat Tim Segru. So
that's a big, and you just started wrestling your freshman year?
Yeah.
Because Tim had been wrestling since he was like 6 years old. So for you to beat Tim Segru, your sophomore year, that was a big accomplishment.
He was a tough.
I swear I remember was it at Fairfax that year? Watching that match, because me and Tim were always like, tight growing up. And I just remember seeing like, damn, he's losing.
I wasn't expected to win that match. That gave me a lot of confidence, and I'm sure he.
Who was your coach over there at Yorktown back then? You guys had a really good.
Noel Lobin. He was a bronze medalist in the Olympics, and then Coach Jeffrey Mallett was also an amazing coach. He was an Olympic alternate, so we had some real firepower in our coaches. And he was, in addition to being a Olympic alternate, he was a 5-time Armed Forces champion for Greco-Roman and freestyle.
Yeah, you guys had a good club back then. I don't remember what the impetus was or why, but I remember I would go to Yorktown and work out.
Matt, I really appreciate your time today. This has been a lot of fun, and it's going to be super helpful for all the young wrestlers today who are trying to become great, try to follow in your footsteps and win a state title.
I'm glad to have been on the podcast here. I'm glad that you reached out to me, and it was a pleasure as well on my end. And it sounds like we have quite a number of things that we could talk about. So, hopefully outside of the podcast, we can continue some of these discussions that we've started at a later date.
Thanks for listening to Back Points today. If you want to support the show, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you find the show. Also, it helps us if you give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Feel free to also make a donation via Patreon at patreon.com/backpoints. Thanks, and see you next episode.